And so Adept Integrator is next. Many of you know Adept Integrator we launched just a little over 2 years ago. And we've got a lot of customers, or several customers, taking advantage of that solution to automate data flows across business systems. So whether you're integrating Adept with another business system or other business systems to other business systems, that's really what Adept Integrator is all about. You've all met Charlie already, so Charlie's coming up onto the stage, as well as Jean Grobler. Jean is here, joining us really from South Africa originally, lives in Florida now. And if you probably know Jean if you've been to Adept Experience over the last couple of years. For those of you who don't, Jean is an avid cyclist, and there's a mountain bike race in South Africa called the Epic, which is, what's that?
The Cape Epic.
Yeah, the Cape Epic. And it's the most grueling mountain bike race perhaps in the world. And John has raced in that and is training for that once again. So please welcome these two guys up on the stage.
Yeah, essentially, Jean is going to kill himself to save the rhinos.
Thanks for that, Charlie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Jean started his career in the field of law in South Africa back in 1992, where he had a scholarship with IBM. After studies and working a few years, he joined IBM in their software division at the onset of them introducing a new range of middle solutions. At IBM, he learned how to design and architect solutions within the middleware software arena. With this knowledge, he branched out many years later to start his own company and has since been designing and architecting solutions for clients across the globe and in various industries. And we already mentioned about you killing yourself for the rhinos, so enough for that. And application development is my thing, and part of the reason that I am involved with these integrator projects is because we really needed somebody who had adept knowledge, expertise in order to help his team develop their solutions. And so that's me.
Thanks, Charlie. So I'm going to go through a few slides just to give you a refresher on what Adept Integrator is. But what we're really going to spend time on today is some of the client solutions which we've put out there, and just some general application of how we've employed Integrator to help clients. And thanks very much, Bob, for talking about our project with you, and we're pretty excited about going live next week. So Adept Integrator is an industry-leading platform that eliminates data silos, connects IT systems, ERP systems, financial systems, enabling the orchestration of data through advanced workflow and business processes. It's an out-of-the-box system that, if configured correctly, will help you accelerate your business performances. Adept Integrator is an integration platform that is enterprise grade and will allow you to workflow a number of solutions across the organization. What we try to say to our clients is to allow Adept Integrator to do the back-end processing for yourself and optimize that data, allowing you the time to analyze that data. One of our fundamental tenets, and Bob spoke about it so aptly, is to enter data once at source and have the data replicate across the systems. So Adept Integrator allows us to deliver big data integration, business process automation, and data synchronization bidirectionally across different technologies. It has the power and the versatility to support a wide range of business processes and data synchronization scenarios. So we get asked quite a lot every time we get into a presentation, can you connect to our application? Can you connect to this? And the answer is yes. And we're pretty confident in our answer why it's a yes. The reason being is that we've got over 100 plus pre-built connectors, components, and protocols that we can utilize. A number of the industry solution vendors have developed connectors or APIs with us to connect into their application. So if you're looking at the slide, on the outer edges of the circle are the tier 1 connectors which we got. Now, we can't put all 100 up on the slide, but let's just talk about the main ones. We've got SAP, we've got SharePoint, we've got Adept, we've got Google, there's IBM there, Microsoft, and essentially having these connectors allows us to connect at the application layer and ensure that the integrity of the data and the application processes are maintained. This also allows us to future-proof the applications. So let's say, for example, you're running on SAP ECC6, which is commonly known as SAP R3, and you are moving to SAP HANA. The ability to actually have Integrator reach out, touch your SAP R3 instance while you're upgrading to SAP HANA is dual, and you can comfortably move to SAP HANA without breaking any of the interfaces which you currently enjoy and have in place. This is really powerful and allows you to actually do some really smart things, which I'll talk about a little later in the slide. In the inner circle, we've got our protocols. And these are protocols which are available to us if there's no connector available. Okay? And we utilize these protocols quite a lot. And in most instances, we would leverage a web service, which we all know about web services and how they all work. And you've got different standards and protocols in web services. We can connect to any database and work with those databases and move the data across. Or we could do just very simple file share, in the sense, connect to a file location and just share data through those files. What we often do in that scenario is that clients have very large spreadsheets and we need to get data in, and we say to the client, you know what, just drop that file or that spreadsheet in that file location, however you've got it, and we map that data and get that data into the systems which you have, so without having to rejig data all the time. EDI, mostly for the retail and consumer goods industry, there's the whole EDI process. And then, of course, HIPAA as well, which I haven't got up there on the system. And then Todd spoke about the question about IoT. And this is pretty new. It came out just on about a year and a half ago. And it's based on the MQTT protocol. And this is really good. It allows one to actually connect to IoT devices or any device, consumer device, or even the shop floor, and bring that data into Integrator and process that data how you'd like to manage that. So as you can see, there are many ways in which we can actually integrate. There are many methods of integration. And the trick really for us is to spend some time with you as the client, working through what applications and those business processes to define the best method of integration for you. So how do we do this? And this is really key. Essentially, Adept Integrator simplifies the design and integration process by separating the business logic from the integration technology. And as you can see, what we do is we look for business processes. We define these business processes with you in a discovery session and build out those business processes. And as you can see on the main slide, we've just simplified the drawing out there, but essentially build out those business processes into a flow. On the right-hand side, you've got a solution explorer where we've got all our connectors, all the components available in our toolbox. No, sorry, that's the toolbox on the left-hand side. And we can bring those applications into play. So for example, we can bring an SAP connector onto the main display. We can bring SharePoint onto the display. We can map that business process of how those two applications will talk to one another and define that process, okay? And what's great about it is that we're able to even build these processes out and simulate business process or model a business process for you without affecting the technology layers, the business layers, and of course the business process. So you have this ability to simulate as well as develop the actual interface at the end of the day, giving you a lot of opportunity to model how a new process or a new business process will work within your organization. On the right-hand side, which I spoke about originally, was the Solution Explorer. We all know that business processes are not simplistic. They all link to one another. And essentially what we do with the Solution Explorer is we connect business processes together. So let's just talk about a simple delegation of authority. You may have a high-level delegation of authority which says over 100 million, I need board approval, over 10 million, I need financial director approval, and so you break that down. But now we will go down to sites, and different sites have different delegations of authority. And what we can do is we can link all that up so that each business process leads off another business process if it needs to. And as you can see, we're focused more on the business process layer rather than the technology layer at this point. And that's really the power of Adept Integrator. We have a whole bunch of widgets, tools, snap-ins, which we can employ in the main pane to actually build these integrations up. It is a code-free environment. And that's really, really important for us to actually deploy really quickly. Now, at the bottom, we need to define where specific data goes. So once we've defined the whole process and we know that we've got one application talking to another, we've got the business rules around why that data needs to move, we need to tell it what data needs to go. Now, this is the point where we go into a data mapper. And we'll just bring out the data mapper, and really it lists all the fields on the left and all the fields on the right. And the left would be your source system, and on the right would be your target system. And essentially, what we do is we drag and drop those connections. So we make visual connections between the data, between the systems and the data. And what we can do at this process is we can transform this data, we can add to the data, we can do lookups of the data, we can validate the data. This is really powerful at this point because we've got a whole lot of functions within the application to do some smart stuff. And once moving that data then is moved between the two systems if the conditions are satisfied. So as you can see, we've got a very solid toolkit which more focuses on the business process and the focus of understanding your business rather than getting caught up in the technology layer. Well, the great thing, and as I spoke about, is upgrade protection and future-proofing your applications, is if you were to upgrade to, let's keep the SAP HANA example going, you move to SAP HANA, those business processes hang in place. Any unique fields which will become available for you are now just replicated in the data mapper, and so you just need to reconnect any new fields which you've employed at that point in time. So what happens then is we deploy the solution. Now, a lot of clients don't even know this, but we've got a monitor which runs off the web where you can accurately drill down into each of your processes, each of your interfaces. You can see the performance. We spoke a lot about performance at Adept, and we want to know how this process is working. Well, we can drive down into each of the interfaces. We can see if it's up. We can stop these processes. We can see how data is moving, and we can also manage any errors coming from the system. It really allows you to monitor the improvements and the performance of your technology and how it's all hanging together. Now, the key point here is that if we're collecting data, let's take, for example, we're connecting to the shop floor, because that's really a large volume of data. We've got hundreds of thousands of data points, transactions coming at us at any one point in time. How do you manage all of that data? Well, it's basically built on your architecture. In-memory data grid technology is a technology which allows us to back up each of the processes and make sure that they don't fall over. So it allows us to grab that data, bring it up into RAM, process it, and not lose that data if something should happen. It also gives us the ability to cluster technology and RAM together so that we've got extra power if we need, and we can scale down when we don't need that data. So it's a really fundamental technology and architecture which has been employed by a lot of organizations. You've got a lot of databases running down that. You've got SAP HANA running on in-memory data grid technology. And so we've moved with that world to employ that architecture. Security is a really key point. we've found, and Todd spoke about it in the 2019 update on SSL, and a lot of our clients are wanting to encrypt the data within their firewall. We've seen this a lot. And Integrator allows us to do this. It allows us, if you go back to the data mapper, we're able to actually encrypt any transaction which is happening at any point. We can employ certificates, SSLs, OAuth, and that really makes the fundamental data transfer really important and secure, especially when we start talking about on-premise versus cloud technology. And often what we're doing is we're connecting to an on-premise solution to the cloud and needing to move data between those two environments. That encryption is really important, and we need to make sure that that data is secured. And so end-to-end security becomes a key fundamental feature that we need to focus on. And so Integrator allows us to do that at this level. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some customer solutions, and Charlie's going to be with me on this, and I'm going to ask Charlie to kick off on now on the first one.
Good.
Yeah, one more.
Interesting. My talk track's on this slide. Let's see. So here we have a large owner-operated power utility, name not to be mentioned, who uses a particular system that they've been using for many years, spatial linking methodology. It's a custom built web-based application which Integrator is connected to through web services. SLM is a map-based system where the customer manages drawings and related documents such as information about feeders, pictures, diagrams, and reports. SLM was a manually updated system previously where drawings were kept in a flat folder structure and referenced from there. So a highly manual process to keep the latest and greatest, and sometimes the data would go stale. Adept is now the document management solution which helps them manage the documents across departments and systems. Adept's Integrator allows it to communicate with external systems and set up triggers to listen for new files being created. Key to this process is the data and drawing take-on from SLM to Adept to ensure that both systems have the latest and greatest relevant documents, drawings, reference between them. ArcGIS, I'm missing my prompts here. ArcGIS is the system used to access drawings and its related documents for the customer's assets at the geospatial.
There we go.
Yeah, at the geospatial location using the Adept web client and a mobile device. The types of document drawings relevant to ArcGIS: subsurface drawings, feeder maps, transmission drawings for potheads. Not the kind that are here in Colorado, station drawings. And so this is sort of how our system integrates with all the business systems through Integrator. The next one, Jean's going to talk about, because I wasn't as involved with that one. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Charlie.
Yep.
Okay, so the next one is a mining reference, which we've got. And this is a unique scenario. I spoke about this at Adept Experience last year. But this is a unique way in which this client has actually utilized Adept. It's a bit out of the box, it's a bit different in their thinking, and it's not traditional. And what I really like about the solution is that it's great how different clients perceive document management and the philosophy around document management and how they can actually employ technology outside of its traditional use. So let's give you a bit of a preamble. This is an application for expenditure process. This is portfolio management for a large mine. They're globally situated. They've got sites around the globe. And in terms of their portfolio, they needed to update or create new projects, new opportunities, capture them, and get these approved so that new projects could be initiated on sites and mines around the globe. Their process was manual, largely, with a lot of people spread around the globe. And it took them over 3 months to approve any request for capital. What we did is we applied a different philosophy to them. We took SharePoint, we put SharePoint out there, and we said, okay, let's create a form, a web form, where anybody can come in and collaborate as to any opportunity they want. So they would say, hey, I've got an opportunity out of mine. I'm going to drop a hole here, and we're going to now apply for capital. And so they would fill out the form, they would update the information, and that would drop into their cost management system. At this point, it was just a wish. Program manager would receive this information in their cost management system and say, hey, I've got a portfolio of $100 million, and this guy wants to drop a hole here in South Africa, and it's going to take up another 10% of my budget. I'm going to approve or reject this at this point. And so he approves it. I'm going to take the affirmative. And so he updates and approves this and says that this is a project which I'm going to allow in my portfolio. It goes and it updates their EIS system. At the same time, it comes back and says to the user on SharePoint, hey, your opportunity has been approved. Now you have the right to go and apply for funding. Okay? And this is where Adept starts coming into its own. At this point, the user from the SharePoint page completes further information, and they start capturing documents. They need to do scopes. They need to do environmental studies, water studies. I mean, you can just imagine the amount of documents which they start collating and collecting at this point in time. And all they're doing is they're grabbing all this information and they're submitting their package into SharePoint. And once they've submitted this into SharePoint, it then drops down into Adept. At this point, Adept workflow kicks off. That delegation of authority process kicks off. Based on where we are in a certain site, Adept starts routing this package of documents through a number of approval cycles. At the point, the client has to employ some, they've got a number of review boards. So let's say we've got the environmental review board. The environmental review board sometimes sits, sometimes doesn't sit. And so we had timers kicked off, built into the workflow to approve things and automatically approve things or escalate things to a higher level. The great thing about it is once they've approved that project within Adept, and which they could do via email or through the through the web client or through the desktop client, it updated every system. It kept on keeping the update on SharePoint so that the user knew at any point where their approval was sitting, whose desk it was, how long it was sitting there, and whether it's been approved or rejected. As well, once the approval happened, it would hand over the data through to Oracle, update Oracle, get the budget approved, move that budget into the right function, update the forecast of spend and cash flow spend into Oracle as well from Prism, as well as update their P6 schedule. And all of that could be done either from email, from the SharePoint page, and or from Adept. And as you can see, what we were trying to achieve here is allow the users a collaborative effort to come into an environment, capture data, input data once at source, and have that data replicate throughout the whole system, throughout the whole application architecture, so that they could actually generate that business process and apply that business process. The end result was that they were able to approve an AFE within 3 days thereafter. That was the quickest. Their average is sitting now at 3 weeks. And it's been running now for them for about a year, Todd? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to hand another one over to Charlie.
We'll see if I can get these the slides a little better this time. So this one's a manufacturing company that we worked with in the Northeast. This manufacturing customer uses a Salesforce product called Propel, which is a product lifecycle management application. Leveraging Adept Integrator's configuration to synchronize the data between systems, when the category list in Propel is updated with the new information, the restricted list selections on Adept's data card are automatically updated with that information. So the latest and greatest is available for those Adept users to select from. When the parts and assemblies are created in Adept and have gone through Adept's workflow to the final approval, all the relevant and configured metadata concerning the latest revision are updated in Propel, which contains their bill of materials for the finished goods. This connects the engineering and design team to the manufacturing team through Adept Integrator much more efficiently. Yeah. So next, we're going to describe an oil
the final
pipeline customers integration.
Yeah.
Jean's going to start us off.
Okay, so this is a client which hasn't gone live yet. It's another product which we plan to go live in the week. We've gone through our UAT and we've passed that at this point in time. So Charlie and I are going to play off this one because this is an interesting one for you. And there's two scenarios which we'd like to talk about. We've been hearing a lot about federated search. And so what this client asked us to do is and here's a spelling mistake, it's not Esmis, it's Emis, okay? What they had is they had an internal portal where the users could come to and type in a keyword, an asset number, a drawing number, whatever they wanted. And essentially, they wanted to go out and bring back all related documents from Oracle, Adept, SharePoint, and a number of other sources back to Emis, so that the user from there could click on into those documents. So what we did here is we utilized Integrator to actually reach out, touch those applications, and pass the queries. Now, let's not say it's an open-ended Google query, because I mean the algorithm behind that is quite high. But essentially, there were a number of 5 or 6 queries or attributes which they would mostly search on, and so we could actually create that query quite simply for them and reach back out and bring that data back. So that's the first one about federated search and utilizing Integrator and its connectors to other applications to bring data back for them and present it on a portal. Now, in their sense, it wasn't SharePoint, it was just their homegrown portal which they used. The second one is more of a process. Now, this is interesting. We're not utilizing Integrator in this sense, what I would call horizontally. We're not like reaching out and touching another application, so to say. This is more of a vertical integration. This is within Adept and doing some really smart stuff within Adept. And together with Charlie's team and the Integrator team, we came up with a unique scenario. And this is really the brainchild of Nick here when we were in the discovery session with this client. We went around this quite a few times, and I think we got a really interesting solution out of this. So I'm not going to take you through the whole business process, but let's just talk about they're a pipeline company, and they have to maintain a pipeline. And essentially, in maintaining that pipeline, this is already pre-built and post-engineering's happened. And now, essentially, we need to get post-construction and engineering data back in, or we need to update that. So what they do is they publish the engineering drawings out to an EPC. The EPCs would receive those drawings and now need to go and update those drawings. There's nothing happening in-house, so they're reliant on an EPC to do the engineering. So post-construction, the EPC would then send that drawing back in to the client. They would create the transmittal, okay, and then from creating that transmittal, it checks it into Adept. Adept picks that data up, passes it over to Adept Integrator, and this is where some smart stuff happen, is we need to check those drawings, we need to validate those title blocks, and ensure that it complies to the engineering standards. And at this point, we hand over to Charlie's team, where they developed a CAD title block widget, which Integrator plays off.
Yeah, we finally found something that Integrator couldn't do. The proprietary DWG format is we have more than 30 years experience with dealing with that, and so we were able to leverage a small custom component. It's just a simple DLL, which brings in all the essential pieces of that drawing extraction to deliver that data. I think we use XML or JSON, I can't remember, over to Jean, to the integrator to be able to do something with it.
That's correct. So as you can see, it comes out, it drops down into a database, integrator does the validation, and then spits out the result. At this point, if there was anything wrong with those drawings or anything like that, workflow would kick it back out. It would circle back to the engineer. The engineer would receive an email, and so then they would update that drawing. It would drop back into the validation process and then revalidate, and then kick back the answer. So you can see we took a lot of the manual validations out and allowed integrator and some custom programming within Adept. This is not anything reaching out. This is all just business functionality and enhancement within Adept to build on the solution. Why did we use integrator? And this is a key point. The reason why we used integrator is that validation process was dynamic for the client. They felt that in 3 months' time, they wouldn't need to do those validations because of the functionality which Adept brought to them. But they didn't want to let go of that right up front. And so we said, okay, well, use Adept Integrator because that will give you the ability to switch off certain functions and validations at any point, giving this client a lot of flexibility to do that kind of validation and amendment within the solution, rather than going into the CP and doing some line-based code. Because once again, we're only focused on the business object layer with an integrator.
For some numbers to consider, these drawings, some of them have upwards of 50 individual blocks of data. That's how much information is there. And it could take hours and hours and hours of manually sitting there, reviewing the data, comparing it, and then approving it. And this whole hours and hours and hours that a person would usually spend, now it gets done in just a few minutes on check-in. So big savings in time.
So let's talk about some of the aspects of integrator. What are the take-homes for you? We've got a number of certified connectors. These certified connectors have been developed by industry solution vendors. They're maintained and they're future-proofed and upgradable for you. Leveraging these connectors really makes connecting to applications a lot easier for you. You don't have to be the technical expert in this instance. We've got bidirectional transaction. As you can see, as we build these flows, we can send data back and forth between different applications. And let's talk about SAP because it's probably the hardest from a business process layer. We can ensure that data is validated before it goes back into SAP, and we can pull data out of SAP and push it to another application as well. By having a philosophy when we design these solutions for you of input data once at source, we reduce mistakes, we increase business productivity. It really makes leveraging the existing applications a lot easier. Users are used to the applications they use every single day. If you're in the project world, they're used to their project applications. If they're in the document or engineering world, they're used to Adept. So we've got to meet people where they're at. Mm-hmm. Increasing business performance, well, that goes without saying. If we're going to talk about connecting different applications and building integrations, you can expand your thinking, as I've mentioned, to build models and simulations to see what a new business process may look like and simulate that irrespective of technology. And that's really powerful. So you can actually leave everything intact and see what a change would look like in your organization. Lowering operational cost and increasing your business performance. Obviously, if we're not having to update data twice or 3 or 4 times, you can imagine in the Barrick scenario how many people they took to manage that whole solution. That was the mining. I just slipped the client's name. Forgive me for that. But you can imagine how many people they used to actually maintain that environment. They were able to streamline that whole process and bring a lot of efficiency to their organization. The singular interface across all applications. Using Adept Integrator, you don't have to just say, hey, I'm just going to use it between Adept and Adept. In the case of the pipeline organization, they said, hey, this has worked pretty well within Adept. Can we reach out and touch other applications? And they're starting to explore those opportunities, because having that ability to reach out and seeing all their interfaces, all their integrations from a single point, and being able to go into the monitor and drill down into the level of detail and see it from a single point, brings a lot of value to their IT team. It brings a lot of value in the sense that they can start and stop processes. They've got a lot of control in that process. Consolidating data in BI. Now, the Dow guys do a lot of data analytics and that BI, and that really just struck me as to what you guys are doing, and how you need to grab that data and manipulate and bring that data through. Leveraging Integrator to bring that data and put it into a data warehouse, data lake, data pond, let's call it whatever. And then all you're having to think about is the business application of putting some sort of visualization on top of it. Allows you not to have to worry about where do I find that data. I know that data exists because Integrator's gone and fetched that data and brought that into the pond. You're now only worrying about what am I looking for and how do I visualize what I'm trying to show. And that's a really powerful opportunity to leverage a client's business and take information up to the executives. Essentially, our take home is Adept Integrator saves you time. And that's pretty much where we are. We have a deep dive, and at the last Adept experience, I did a recording. But what we thought we would do this year is give you the opportunity to see a real live integration. So what we've done, I've got Ed here, one of my colleagues. He's going to break out and he's going to go, he's in the Calypso room, where we've got two applications talking to one another, and he's going to show you how Adept and Integrator work with another application. It's a web application. And at the end of the day, he's going to take you a little bit of a deep dive into Adept Integrator. He's going to show you how we separate that business process logic from the technology, and we're not so reliant on being a technologist at the end of the day. So please, the times are up on the board. Go and spend some time with Ed and have a look at Adept Integrator. You will see it live. And this is not something I can often show you on a presentation, or if you called us to a meeting, because it's so unique. And what we've done is we've put this together for you guys at Adept Experience now, so that you can actually get to feel, touch, see, and see some of that magic happen. So yeah, any questions?
I have a question about the post-construction. You know, you use the integrator to do the validation, the title block.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you do the validation is only for the AutoCAD, or is it apply for MicroStation as well?
At this point for them, it's AutoCAD only.
It's just any AutoCAD.
But it's technically possible.
And
Yeah.
we can do it.
Okay, good, thank you. And the follow-up question is, you know, the validate the title block, but you know, like Dow Chemical, we're dealing with the multiple external parties. So different EPC firms, you know, each company, they have a different title block.
Yes.
So the program, you know, integrator we use will only, well, for the one company, you can validate the title block, or we can validate multiple, you know, let's say we got 3 or 4 EPC firm work on one project.
Yeah, the way we implemented that component is that it's command line controllable, and so you can actually call out specific names of the title block definitions, or you can grab it all. So no matter what drawing we give to it, as long as it's actually defined as a block, we can get the name, we can get the values of all the attributes, and as well as the coordinates, the coordinate locations on the drawing, so that it makes it easier for folks to go back and validate and figure out why the data is wrong, and then fix it up.
Okay, so can you explain to us a little bit about your customized program? So what that part do?
We essentially leveraged all the knowledge that we have around the DWG format We know how to get to the data. And so give me more specific question.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, so the integrator, that's, if we had to purchase the license, right? So the customize the program, so how to go with it, or we have to purchase separately? So
could
what's
see
the
it as a connector,
functionality
so to
we
say.
have to use the customized program?
It's really, that piece was just a service to create the widget, and it's now part of the integration itself. So there's no extra licensing or anything like that.
Yeah, it's almost a connector. So essentially, as we have many connectors, so we develop additional connectors which we can leverage within it, and that's just a connector which is available, which we can now employ within Integrator and build validations off.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Now, with the SAP being multi-leveled programming, we use SAP for our work orders,
Yes.
and we were looking at trying to figure out a way to be able to attach drawings, so that way when a technician goes out for a work order, they're able to have the drawings already readily available to them. Is that something that a widget would do, or is that something that can be processed?
Yes, it definitely can do that. Now, there are a number of scenarios which we need to think about in terms of that. Is where do you want that? Where do you want those documents to be housed? Essentially, our philosophy is that all documents are housed within Adept, and so two options become available. One, we can actually send the link out to SAP, so that the user from SAP can click on the hyperlink and view that document. And there's value in that in itself, because it's going to make sure that security and credentials and access and rights are all adhered to before you can actually access that document. Or what we can do is we can grab the document out of Adept and move the copy into SAP or into file location, and then they view it from there. Either way can work. It's more dependent on the kind of information. In the case of ConEd, just that kind of scenario, security is key. And what we made sure is we had to make sure that before the user got any documents, his rights, his user credentials were validated before they could see that view. And pretty much the same kind of scenario, whether it's SAP or ArcGIS on the other end, it's the same technology, it's the same business function moving through.
Currently, we're running multiple platforms of SAP.
Yes.
Can the integrator work with multiple platforms?
Yes, it can.
Again.
Yeah.
And what was my other
Have you got different versions of SAP as well? Or
We
is
do.
it just
Different versions, yes.
yes?
Okay. I think that's it, because I forgot my question.
Yeah. So let me elaborate on that. I mean, we have a lot of clients who have SAP R3, and they're in the process of migrating to SAP HANA, and we know that migration is not an easy migration. And so, what's great about Integrator is you don't need to have two connectors of SAP. You need one connector of SAP. It will manage that process, whether I'm connecting to the resource of SAP R3 or whether I connect to the resource of SAP HANA. Remember, the other cool thing about it is because it's the SAP connector and we developed it with SAP controls what access it gives. So there will be a user, there's a BAPI, there's data access, which SAP is in control of all the way, and says, okay, integrator, that's what you're allowed to see. You're allowed to see the MM module or the PS module or whatever, and you can only see those modules and that data from it. So it's really, it's in between. I mean, you can actually have SAP HANA and SAP R3 talk to each other, and you can send data that way. We've done that as well.
So we kind of spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but now say I have an application that's almost guaranteed not to have a connector on your list. I don't have there's no API available.
Yeah.
Do we have any options for integrator in that respect? Maybe talking to a database and changing fields?
Absolutely. Those little gray blobs on the inner side of that circle are the protocols which we can leverage. Now, there are many options in that scenario, and we'll discuss that with you. I mean, connecting to the database is by far the easiest. Okay, we can connect to any source of the database. Integrator will generate its SQL statements. It's all on the fly. We don't have to be specialists in that world. So database integration is simple. It's out of the box. But sometimes clients say, hey, we don't want you to touch our database. I'm going to give you an extract. And so they'll generate an extract and we'll just grab a text file. Sometimes legacy applications can only just present a text file, and so we'll grab that text file and we'll process from there. Or alternatively, we can do other methods where we could use a web service where integrator can connect to the database and present a web service and then consume it itself. Or alternatively, we can connect to the database and use the text file and hybridize that kind of solution. So there are many ways in which we can connect to the application. We have a connector builder with an integrator as well. So if we were to hybridize a scenario where we connect to the database and then there's an extract file which is coming and we need to merge that data, we can actually build a connector which could be employed and support that application whilst you're living that life and may look for another application in the future to upgrade to. And so you can work that and future-proof that particular application as well. So the answer is yes. There are many, many methods which we can utilize at that point. We just need to find the best one for you.
Thank you.
Todd,
Thank you.
this is going to be tough.
No. So Ryan, on your question, I wanted to kind of like tie that up into something really succinct, which is actually kind of a feat for me, as we all know. One of the amazing things about Integrator is it can take your legacy system, read from the database, write to, if they'll figure it out. These guys are amazing. And it can actually create a RESTful web API where none exists today. You could, using Integrator, create what we call an enterprise service bus. So you can stand up some web APIs that you could then use for other systems. Update this system here, get this information from Adept. That's an amazing capability of Integrator. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about. It's phenomenal. I met Jean and his colleague working on a Microsoft project. And as soon as I met these guys and went through a week of meetings, I knew they were the answer to the 10-year request for us to be able to integrate with Maximo and other business systems. They know their stuff. It's remarkable what you can do. You can web enable or API enable that legacy system using that.
Thank you, Todd. Nick.
Great job, guys. I just wanted to add to the drawing validation part. What's really cool that Integrator does for this particular client is not only do they have 50 blocks on their drawings, but every block might have the exact same name with the exact same attribute. And everybody knows that Adept struggles with that. If you got more than one block of the same name, you only get the first one. What Integrator does is it pulls them all out and compares the attribute against other released files in Adept. So that's super beneficial, where we use the out-of-the-box functionality, and Integrator just loops the extraction process and grabs all the blocks and attributes. Okay? The other thing that it does is they have a reference document block that they use, and they have reference drawings listed that are listed with commas and dashes to indicate sheet numbers. Integrator parses all that information out, finds the drawing number, and then creates the Adept relationship between it. So, I mean, they did a great job, but there's a few technical details for the nerds that are in the room might like that little tidbit.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, that's good.
We have a question over here.
So just to expand, I just wanted to know, so I have a program that actually holds all of our equipment numbers.
Yes.
And I have drawings in Adept that I need to update the equipment number, but the equipment number is on an Excel spreadsheet, and I could have like 50 different equipment numbers on one drawing.
Yes.
And I can't put that as a piece of metadata in my data card, but can it do a lookup?
Yeah.
And then produce all the drawings and then flip those drawings over into the other software?
Yes, it can.
Perfect.
And even if you didn't want to get rid of your spreadsheet, you could leave your spreadsheet. It will go and open up that spreadsheet and go look up there.
Thank you.
One more question, Nick. Oh, sorry. Let's go to Randy, and then I'll come back to you, Nick.
Yeah, so while you were talking, I wrote down like 20 different uses for DAO, for integrator based on the various things you were saying.
That's exciting.
And we've got a lot of large systems, but we also have a lot of small systems. And so is integrator at the point where the DAO development team could write a component, a plugin,
Yes.
or a?
Yes. We have a studio component, and this was the case of the pipeline client. They wanted to take control of Adept Integrator. They're sitting at the other end of the world. Support is difficult. And because it was oil and gas, they needed to make sure that they controlled that environment in a highly strictly and highly security conscious environment. So what we did is we gave them this Adept Integrator. It takes about a week to train a business analyst up with some detailed technical knowledge kind of thing. I don't want to put names, but you've definitely got the people within your organization which could actually learn Adept Integrator and then take control of it and build your own interfaces, build your own connectors even within the tool, because it's all self-intuitive. It's widget and wizard driven that will help you through that process. And what we do then in that scenario is we step back as a second line support and we help consult and guide you through that process. I was talking over lunch about a client, a large steel company, and they were hacked by China. So I'm not going to give you their name, and so their security was hectic. And in that instance, what we did is we built a very complex integration for them, much the same as that AFE scenario, which created projects everywhere and all those good things. And we thought we were really good in what we actually did and did some smart stuff. And we taught them how to use Integrator and all that kind of stuff. They're now 6 months into the process, and we came back and we spoke to them, and they had taken Integrator and they had created bots, and they had bots running over the whole scenario, and literally they would push out a project, name and number from either Oracle, which was approved, it would just go populate everything across the network. And they've taken Integrator to a level which we just like, wow. So yes, the answer's open to you. Nick.
One more thing to add about the federated search is when they search in EMIS, there's a link, and when the user clicks the link, it pings Adept to make sure that they have an adequate level of permissions and won't display the file if they don't have view level access, which is another like huge benefit.
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Very good.